Bellefontaine, and you're listening to the HomeBuyer's Hour on WCPT AM 820. And we got our regular guest in the studio with us, Steve Davis, along with Patrick Loftus and Joey Mathews, my favorite mortgage broker. Joey, if you don't mind, I'm really angry at these two in the room right now.
So your anger is not at us.
Your anger is definitely not at us.
Them out.
I did nothing.
So just you and me, Joey.
I do not
it.
accept your anger.
Ouch.
If you don't mind, Joey, give me the rundown of why you're so special to me. And just for everybody else, we're going to talk about a lot about home inspection stuff today. And more so, you know, what is serious, what isn't serious, what should be documented, and so forth. And I got a bunch of examples, and I want to get all three of your opinions. But first, Joey, please give us your rundown.
All right, well, my name is Joey Mathews, the VA Loan Nerd, NMLS 1330694. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com. You can find me across all social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd. And if you want to call or text me, you can call 630-235-2405.
You do have the most romantic voice. What's going on in the finance world right now, Joey?
We've been pretty flat. I know we had a rise in rates over the last 2-3 weeks, but it's flattened out pretty well since. We do have some financial data coming in tomorrow. It's PCE, personal, consumer expenditure. So what people are spending. If that comes in light, we will see a nice correction downwards. If it comes in high, then I would imagine our next ceiling on the 10-year Treasury is at 4.5, which would also push rates up a little bit higher again. So we are playing a fun game of what's going to give first on inflation. I think the big problem here, and it's been talked about more, is credit card debt. Consumers are loading more and more credit card debt.
Are you in on with these guys? Trying to make fun of the credit card stuff here?
The problem...
That's my whole thing that I'm worked up, Joey.
The problem here is
credit card debt.
I'm pretty sure we can't name the company that has caused your mood to swing downward because...
he was such a happy person this morning.
No,
yeah,
he was
at breakfast.
He was kind of
He seemed to be happy at breakfast.
A bit of a foul mood. As soon as this whole credit... But again, we can't name them because they're probably a sponsor.
I don't know.
On
I don't
some
care.
Level.
Let's keep moving on. Steve,
No,
if you
not.
don't mind, give us your contact information. I want to get to work here.
Did we finish the financial situation?
I don't know. We interrupted him, that's for sure.
Well, that's what we do. Joey?
Joey.
Were you done yet?
Joey Stradamus, he rests.
Okay.
You are my favorite, Joey.
All right,
Thank you.
who is this guy over here?
All right, so Steve Davis with the Kamara Group, and I specialize in residential real estate. My number is 312-513-6314, 312-513-6314. You can find me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis or Facebook Steven Davis.
Sounds good. Patrick, please.
My name is Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer. My law firm is Loftus Law. I handle real estate transactions, residential. If you're buying your home or selling your home, I'm the guy you hire to make sure that it goes smoothly. Find me on Instagram at Loftus_law, LOF like Frank, T like Tom, US like Sam, if you are listening and not watching. Find me on TikTok. I'm looking for followers on TikTok so I can go live because that matters somehow, at Loftus Law.
And my name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this subject is, I do these follow-up interviews with all of our home inspection clients that hire us, and more so just to clarify how severe the issues are that we document in our report. And I've been coming up with the same thing over and over again, that my clients feel are very serious, and we're marking them, down that way. But then when I talk to them, it's like, hey, listen, this is low probability. Even though there's a high risk, it's a low probability. And the whole thing is to put the issues in proper perspective, all right? Now, and Joey, I don't want you to sit back on this. I mean, the minimum property requirements, and these are things that are going to stop mortgages. So if anything else jumps in on that, I want you to interrupt everybody and get involved in these things. But the first conversation that we had earlier today was about egress windows. So I'm going to save that one to the end. And I want to switch it over to ground fault circuit interrupters. All right. And in today's code, just to make everything clear, GFIs are supposed to be in kitchens, bathrooms, garages, basements, exteriors, anywhere that somebody else could be connected to the earth in one way and touching something that could be energized. And they protect lives. I believe in them. I think they're serious. But knowing that stuff, you get a house that was built post-World War II in 1950, that wasn't a code back then. And there is nothing in the codes that say that we have to bring things up to current standards. So, Steve, I'd like to start with you. How do you talk to clients about the lack of GFIs in kitchens and bathrooms?
So with GFIs, I think it's obviously crucial within 6 feet of a water source, as well as in garages, so on, whatnot. And in regards to what I tell them, I say, the reason the GFI is out there now is because it will trip if something is, caused to a combustion or electrical situation, which could cause a fire. So I tell them that when we are doing the inspections, when we find GFI outlets that are fault, we should definitely have those replaced. I also explain that the safety aspect to it is crucial. Because again, if it's not grounded the right way or it's not tripping, then something can catch fire.
Okay, and I'm going to interrupt you real quick
Please.
there. And no insult to you. You're not the expert when it comes to this type of stuff. And as arrogant and cocky as it sounds, I am. All right, so GFCIs don't stop fires. All right, they don't protect property. What they do is protect people. Circuit breakers will stop fires. They protect property. And just to give a quick rundown for everybody who's listening, amperage, when we talk about electricity, you're going to have volts, amps, watts, and ohms. Those are common terms that are used, and they are 4 different things, but we still call all 4 of them electricity. When we're dealing with amperage, we're really creating an electromagnetic field around the wire, and that amperage just basically sits on the wire. It moves forward and backwards slowly, but it just really sits there, and it never disappears. That's the key point. So if I got 5 amps flowing on the energized conductor, I am going to have, or I should have, 5 amps coming back on the neutral or the grounded conductor, all right? As long as those 2 items are equal, that GFI outlet will allow it to flow. But if it's even 0.5 of a milliamp, and if you think about that, that's 1/2 of 1/1000th of 1 amp. All right, so an extremely small amount of amperage. If it varies even that slightest bit, the power is turned off. This way we don't let a human being become a conductor. That's the main purpose of it, all right? So, and I'm thrilled to death that you take value in them, but it's more for people, not for fires. Mm-hmm. All right, they're not going to predict a fire, and I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought about it a little bit differently than. Well, okay, so that was a very technical description, and I think that it sounded accurate as far as I can tell. The way I view amperage is how if you're looking at an electrical system in the same way as you look at a plumbing system, it's how much of it is coming through. So 5 amps is the amount of electricity that you are getting. 10 amps is twice as much, and so on and so forth. And the way I always conceptualize GFIs, it's like the circuit breaker is meant to trip when there's more than however many amps that it allows to go through, and so that cuts off the electricity to that circuit, and would it for the safety of whether it's a person who has completed the circuit accidentally or whatever it is, and with a GFI, so that's going to trip sooner than the circuit breaker would, and
or
so.
Sooner.
You're basically, instead of getting whacked with a lot of electricity, as your body is experiencing all of that amperage coming through it until the breaker trips, it trips much sooner, so you just get a little zap.
You're
But
not going to
doesn't
get a zap at all.
But doesn't
All
it
right,
have
with
to
the
do
GFI.
with the GFI outlet? Doesn't have to do with if there's, as you said, too much amperage going through, and so on. If you didn't have the GFI, it was just a regular outlet, and let's say
You get zapped.
that's when you get zapped, which can technically cause a electrical possible spark fire.
All right, I'm
Charlie,
going to give
no?
the short version of what I teach new home inspectors, all right?
Please.
Voltage is the pressure, all right? So think of voltage as a magnet. The stronger the magnet, the more pressure that we have that comes in there. The higher the voltage, the more of a push that we're going to have to get electricity from point A to point B, all right? Amperage, it's the true word, is current. And current, as I said, is that electromagnetic field, all right? It just, if the wire is your, finger sticking out, then the electromagnetic field that's created around the wire is basically going to get bigger and bigger with the more amount of amps that you use.
Got it.
All right?
Yep.
We use breakers to protect us from the amperage of that's flowing through the wires, or on the wires, I should say. Wattage, the proper word for wattage is power. I like to remember that because we pay for power. So I remember with the P's, all right? The light bulbs, every piece of equipment such as a range, refrigerator, everything else, they're all going to be measured in wattage. Wattage travels along the skin, typically on the amperage, on that electromagnetic field. It travels at the speed of light. It goes to wherever the work is being done, that light bulb, that refrigerator, and so forth, and then it's gone. It changes into whatever other option that's in there, all right? Ohms is going to be the stuff that slows everything else down. For example, I have a filament in a light bulb. It's very thin, all right? So even though I have a 20-amp circuit and I have all this available electricity on the grid, that little filament is only going to let's just say 120 watts. I want to keep my numbers simple. That's going to allow 120 watts to flow. All right, so there's our difference in the world. So breakers, GFIs, they all measure amperage. All right, they measure that electromagnetic field. When it gets too big, then it's going to snap. These GFIs are designed to trip at 0.5 milliamps. Again, that's 1/2 of 1/1000th of 1 amp. All right, you're not even going to feel that tingle. You're not going to feel a spark. You won't feel anything. You're going to touch something. As soon as you touch it, the power's going off. And then you're going to throw out a whole bunch of cuss words. At least that's how it works in my house. All right?
And you're going to wonder why nothing works because you
Right.
didn't realize it was the GFI that popped.
Exactly.
And you're going to be pressing all these buttons all over the place, especially if it's downstream, because one GFI can protect all the outlets that are downstream of it. So if something trips down, triggers it there, you're going to be looking 5 outlets to the left of you to see if that's the one that resets everything.
So,
it's
Steve,
a pain in the butt.
So, Steve, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So the question that was asked, and then we got sidetracked, but I think in a good way to have a better understanding of what this is, because it comes up more often than not that a GFI is not working. It's not usually that the GFI isn't there. Even in homes that are built, even in the last 10 years, they will by code have GFI.
That's not true.
No?
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry.
Like homes built in the last 10 years.
Yes, that is true. I misheard.
I was going to say, because when we were building homes back in the 90s, GFIs were, part of the deal. But okay, so we're talking about, the risk of a person receiving electrical shock and having the GFCI will reduce that risk substantially, but it is something, these must be fragile or whatever it is because they often quit working for one reason or another. Yeah. And that's why I see them so often, even on newer homes. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, though, how significant is that issue as far as when you're discussing it with a client?
I mean, when I'm discussing with the client, I just say, these are meant for safety aspects. So I think that you should definitely have someone come out there and, replace the GFI outlets and so on. But, from a realtor perspective, we only have so much education depending on who's teaching us. So the things that Charlie just mentioned as far as the different types of amp, and the different type of wattage and so on, power, if you will, things I didn't know particularly, or it's just more education that helps me explain it to my client.
Hey, that's why we're here. Charlie, what does it cost to fix a GFI?
That's the real question right there. It's the outlets themselves, or a good quality one, because if you do buy a cheap one, they do fail. They have a high percentage of failing within a few years.
Yeah.
But a good quality one, standalone, you're looking at about $25.
Okay.
If you want to get one that has an alarm on it that's good quality, and I would get that for anything that you have to plug a refrigerator, sump pump, ejector pits, stuff that you don't want to go out on power without you knowing about it.
Yeah, the sump pump. The big one.
Those, it is a big one.
Yeah, kinda.
They have ones with alarms on them, and those are
Yeah.
about $10 more. They're $35.
And by the way, if you have a sump pump, not a bad idea to invest in a battery backup.
100%.
Every single house we throw
100%.
that in there. Now, Joey, if you don't mind, I want to get it from the mortgage guy's point of view. With GFIs, is that part of the minimum property requirements or minimum property standards?
Oh yeah, you're gonna see that. I mean, as you guys have already said, it's part of code now. So when a appraiser goes into a property, one of the things that they're going to look for is GFIs in areas where you would expect moisture to be, like kitchens, garages, bathrooms, right?
But is
All
that
the
to
areas-
today's standards? Is it what they go by? In other words, like the house was built in 1950, a vet wants to buy it. Does that mean they have to bring that house up to today's standards, even though that's not in the codes?
They don't have to. So, all right, I'll pull up the NPRs directly. But
I'm sorry to
they
catch you
don't
on that
have
one.
No, you're good. It's not a catch. So, NPRs are going to be including GFI outlets, right? And it's a very easy fix
It is.
at the end of the day. That's why it doesn't really matter what the code is. If you're buying a house that was renovated recently, then yeah, it's going to be code anyway. But again, to your point, 1950, it was not code. However, because it is a very easy fix, they still require them.
Yeah, and just to add in, more often than not, a house built in 1950 will have had some work done on it. Will have probably a kitchen that it's not the original from 1950, bathroom same. And so, at whatever point there was an improvement made to the home, they would likely have installed GFCI. Now, the other question, so $25 for a nice one, right? Without the alarm. What's it going to cost to have that installed? Because, let's say I'm not super handy and I'm not going to do it myself. Do I need a licensed electrician, and do I need to pay their rates? Is it something I can get a handyman to do? What's the, I'm not going to hold you to this, but, just give me the real deal here.
I'll tell you what I tell my clients. It's going to end up being a handyman. You could turn the power off to that, and nobody's going to get hurt. All right. Now, granted, if it's a handyman who's not familiar with this stuff, then we should find another one who is. But most people can switch out an outlet. I look at these things as do-it-yourself. There's very few things that you got to remember. You tighten the screw clockwise, so the wire should be wrapped around the screw in the clockwise direction. The black conductor should be the energized conductor. There's going to be a brass screw, a silver screw, and a green screw. The black wire goes to the brass screw, the white wire goes to the silver screw, and that's another thing we find, reverse polarity, all the time where they put that in there. And because we're in a pipe city, in other words, we use conduit here in Chicago, we really don't even use that green screw. We just take the metal flanges, attach it to the metal box, and we're grounded.
Well, you know what I find a lot. Sorry, Steve.
I want to add in
Yeah,
on
go
that
ahead.
really quick. So, yeah, it's very, very easy to do. But here's how you make it idiot-proof. And by that, I mean Steve, that should not touch electrical.
I was so expecting
Okay.
Charlie proof.
No, it's fine. I'll
I've
throw
been in
myself
the pickle
under
barrel today. So.
I'll throw myself under the bus because what you do, and you take a picture of it as soon as you take the cover off and the outlet, or the piece out. When the electrical is off, right? Take a picture of it and just make sure you know how it is. So then when you take that apart and you put the new one on, you can look at your picture and be like, oh, okay, this wire goes to that screw, that wire goes to that screw, so on. So because not everyone is as familiar with, the ground or the hot or the cold, or the power source or whatever.
Yeah, neutral.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Neutral. Thank you.
No, I think
So-
that makes a lot of sense. Then, of course, I open up an outlet and I find there's a brown, a purple, and a yellow. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to put this back the way I found it because
Right.
I do not know
Yeah, for
I do
sure.
not know what the next step
I
is.
think electricians use different colors to mess with homeowners. I swear
Yeah,
to God, I do.
100%.
Nothing against electricians out there, because obviously that's their.
No, I
but-
use the right color, you jerks. Come on.
Yeah, well, let me give you some examples of
Let's make
color
it fun.
coding. All right. Red and black are typically for energized conductors. Whenever you start seeing a red and black wire coming up in the same pipe, that usually means that they're either sharing a neutral or it's going to a 240 circuit. White and gray are typically for neutral conductors or grounded conductors, same thing. White is going to be everything from the breaker to the first GFI. and then gray should be from the first GFI to everything after that. All right. This is what a union or a good, well-trained electrician is going to be doing, but that doesn't mean that's the person who worked on this thing. Any other color could be used. City of Chicago actually has I'm sorry, City of Chicago, I love you so much, but it's a really garbage code. All right, and they come back and catch this one out. They're grounding electroconductor. They have it in writing that it could be black, it could be bare, but it cannot be green. And green is like the most
Green is
universal.
ground, right?
Green is ground. It's the most universal
G
color
and G.
for ground. But now they don't enforce it. It is written in there. And, it's like somebody brought that to my attention. And so we started calling it out. And it's like, what the hell am I doing? This doesn't help my client. And I want to get back to the GFIs with Joey, too. I don't want to forget about him. Joey, how does somebody prove, if they didn't have it in there, what is acceptable to you to find out that they fixed the problem so you can go ahead and approve the loan?
For a VA loan, just take pictures of it and send it in to me. If it's a FHA loan, because both FHA and VA are going to require this, then you got to have the appraiser actually go back out and re-inspect.
Yep.
Okay. And that I think is huge. All right. Knowing that, and does somebody have to pay that appraiser to go back out?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. So the buyer is gonna pay a trip fee to the appraiser on an FHA loan to go back out and re-inspect to make sure GFI outlets are in there. So anytime you have a FHA or VA loan coming in, just get the outlet switched out before the appraiser even gets to the property.
Thank you. And that's exactly where I was going. The more people that we can get to recognize some of these NPRs, especially if it's a VA or an FHA mortgage, we're helping our clients. We're saving, I don't know what an appraiser costs.
$100,
$600.
$150.
All right, so it's not a lot of money, but you know what? It's not a lot of money to me. That doesn't mean it's not a lot of money to someone else.
It's a lot of money to most borrowers because they look at it as an unnecessary expense. $100, $100.
Yes.
You're already spending a lot of money.
Correct.
That's to go back out, though, correct, Joey?
That is, that's the trip fee for the second time around.
Okay, the first time is $6, yes?
It is, so FHA doesn't have a set number. VA does, $550 in this area, and then otherwise it's up to the appraiser charging whatever.
Gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say because it's usually $6. I'm like, oh, I'm way off.
Yeah, I
So
see.
the second trip is 100 to 150. Is that correct?
So for VA, it's going to be 150 every time. FHA is usually going to be right around 125, 150 as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just what I will often find is
Use your words.
yeah, it's hard sometimes.
It's been a rough morning.
I tell you what, I
feel great.
I got the go ahead to just
I had a waffle and egg. It's
Chase
great.
and everything about Chase. So I'm MFing him. Am I allowed to say MF? Never mind.
My friends.
Yeah, there you go. My friends.
My future.
What was I saying? I don't know.
Talking about the GFIs, the cost of the appraiser and such.
Right.
good
Yeah.
times.
So often the buyer will feel some kind of way about that because they'll say their opinion will be, well, we asked them to they agreed to scrape and paint, and they didn't do it in time for the appraiser, and now the appraiser's got to go back out, and so what is sort of a seemingly non-issue for us sitting here in this room becomes an issue for the borrower.
All right. All right. We're switching to a new gear now. We're going to go with water stains. All right. So we're inside of a house. My inspectors are doing what they do. They use their thermal imagers and moisture meters. There's no active water contact, but we see the stains on the ceiling. We know it's leaked in the past. All right. But it's not active. And it just rained real quickly. What do you guys expect to be documented in a report, or what do you think can harm you, or give me some horror and good? Steve, if you're ready, I'll start with you.
Horror and
Otherwise-
good. Gotcha. Well, first of all, if I'm going through the home, in the first place, before I even have the inspector, before you put something under contract, I'm reaching out to the agent and saying, hey, are you aware of this? Do you know what this is? Is this an active leak? Do you know anything? So on. It's not in the disclosures. It is in the disclosures. What is this? So first I'm addressing that just to make sure that there's, if there are issues, if there are not issues, if it's something, a lot of times you'll see something like that and it's already been taken care of. It just hasn't been, scraped, mudded, painted over, whatever, after it has been taken care of. But it is something that I bring up to my clients when we do look at a property to make sure they're aware of it. I think one of the biggest things about an agent is the fact that we need to be the eyes, the ears, and really focusing on not just the, oh, this is so pretty and this is so nice and blah, blah, blah. It's all right. Let me see the nitty gritty. Let me see the stuff they don't see, because a buyer is most likely just excited about finding something that's really great fit. It's cool and it's got, character and blah, blah, whatever it is. Right. So for me, I'm looking for those things that they're not going to see. So I'm looking under sinks to see if there's any water, proof of water at one point. Yeah. Or I'm looking in the closets, or I'm looking in, wherever. So I think that's the first part. The second part is when it comes to an inspector going through and whatnot, they're going to verify my findings if I saw it in the first place or addressed it with the client. And we'll make sure that there is no, it's not an active leak and clearly it is dry and so on. But that's what inspectors situate, that's their job. And I tell my clients all the time, listen, this is what I think, but I don't know. So if you want to move forward with this and we put an offer on the property, we get the property, understand they're going to provide the evidence of what it is and what it isn't. I can't see through the walls. They have a special tool that allows you to see the infrared aspect to see if it is an active leak or if there has been water, if there's sitting water, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how I address that.
And I have to throw a little curveball at you that
please do.
You're not the norm, all right? You're the rare. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your patootie or anything like that,
Patootie.
but it's like, I know I could say that on the air.
Patootie?
But it's all true. Most people won't lift a finger to take any sort of action. I mean, we know that there's over 80% of the real estate agents didn't even do one transaction last year. How the hell are they going to know what is normal or not normal when it comes to these? And even in my profession, I don't know what percentage of home inspectors, I actually should be doing a survey to find out, carry a thermal imager or a moisture meter. Or if they do carry one, what level?
They don't work with me if they don't carry one.
So you got minimum standards that come
100%.
in there. But what happens if somebody hires somebody outside of you and you don't have a say-so?
I just tell them, and listen, based on my experience and what I know and who I know and the resources that I have, I would highly recommend you using, your services, your company, right? But if they say, well, I have my own inspector, this, that, whatever, that's fine. I take no responsibility if there's any problems. I take no responsibility if they're upset later, because guess what? I didn't tell them to hire.
You still have to fix those problems.
Yeah, but that's not, yes, but at the same time.
I saw the look on Charlie's face was
it's preemption.
Was a sour one there.
Yeah.
No, please go ahead.
No, I value everything that you're saying. I guess I want to turn it over to Patrick somewhere. And then back to Joey on the same question. Patrick, I mean, is this something that your clients, what do they ask you to do?
Yeah.
Legal man.
The legal man. Legal man.
I'm all over
to the
words
rescue.
Today. Obviously, I'm worked up.
Legal man.
This is American Hero.
Comes in to save the day.
I can't sing the song, but God, I wish I would remember this.
Literally the worst Marvel superhero ever. Legal man. Yay. You imagine it'd be worse.
I'm going home.
It'd be what's the new Spider-Man
awesome.
movie that came out that everyone hated? It'd be worse than that one. All right, enough of that. Devin will know what the Spider.
Does he attach a briefcase
Devin,
what
was the Spider-Man movie that just came out that everyone hated?
He'll tell us in a minute. He can't get out of here.
He'll text you.
Right.
All right. What do I do? Look, I don't have any say more often than not as to who inspected it. So whether or not they'll have.
The water stain, though.
I didn't know there were different
water
levels.
stain.
So, how do I deal with the water stain? In a perfect world, it just rained like heck for the past week, and we're going to have a pretty clear idea if that's an active leak because it'll be wet. In which case, we're going to say, please address the source of that water.
Let's say it's dry, and we're able to prove that it's dry.
Sure. So, what the typical request I'll make. So if I don't have those ideal conditions, let's say it's, middle of August and it's been, bone dry for the past 3 weeks, more or less. Then water's sneaky. So we've got to try to look and find as many clues as possible as to, whether this is a current problem or a former problem. So for example, what I'll ask is, we see that there's a water stain. Let us know what the source of that stain was and what was done to address it. So that's kind of step one, is to ask the seller to tell us and to be honest. Now, will they? Who knows?
Who knows?
I have no control over the other side. So, what other clues can we look for? Other clues, let's say that
but let's say we know that it's not wet. All right.
Well, we almost cannot know that it's not wet. The only way we know that it's not wet is if the seller says, "This was the source. This is what I did to fix it. Why didn't I go the final?"
I disagree with that too, though, because sometimes they don't disclose it like they should.
Nobody discloses anything, Steve. Come on, who
Well,
are we kidding?
if I'm representing a property, I'm asking them fine tooth. I'm asking you very specific questions to make sure that they are giving me the truth, and if they're not, I'll be like, listen, just let me know what's going on, because obviously my reputation on the line, my word is on the line.
God, I love those words.
But let me finish
I really
my
do.
thought, because
Thank you.
the question was, what if we know it's dry? And the path I was going down is, how do we know it's dry? Well, the seller told us that this was the source. This is what we did. And we just didn't paint for whatever reason. I still don't know. I don't know that they're telling me the truth or not. It goes. We talked earlier about the idea of trust and what trust can do for you in a negotiation, and what trust does for you in a negotiation. And I'm going to credit the person who I heard this from, William Ury. He wrote a book called Getting to Yes, I think it's called. Very famous negotiation book. But I listened to a podcast where he was he was a guest, being interviewed by Tim Ferriss, who I'm sure many people will know who that is. And interesting conversation. You can go on his podcast feed, you'll find it. If you want to learn a lot about negotiation, that's 2 hours well spent, for sure. Now, what he described trust in connection with a negotiation is that it will make a negotiation more efficient, right? So the more I trust Charlie, the less I need to go back and forth with him over the nitty-gritty in terms of a negotiation, because I know he's not going to take steps to sabotage me. Rather, I know that Charlie is going to be someone who is collaborative in that sense. So
I just want to be accurate. We just want the truth.
I'm just saying. I'm talking. In more. I'm talking more. Broader terms here, in terms of describing a negotiation. Same with Steve. If Steve and I were collaborating on something, I would have a lot more trust than if it's just some random person off the street, right? So, the trust builds those efficiencies. If you want a transaction that is going to go, now we're talking about real estate transactions. If you want a real estate transaction that's going to go smoothly, you've got to build trust. How do you build trust in a real estate transaction? Disclose as much as possible if you're a seller, right? As much as is material for the buyer, right? Here's how old my roof is. This is what happened. And these are all things that you are going to, I think, get more value disclosing prior to entering into contract. Once it gets into my lap, now I'm trying to come from behind, right? Because the deal that was negotiated is the deal. All right, I don't get to negotiate the price. That's the biggest weak point for my part of the negotiation, is that the price is the price. The contract's very clear. The price is off limits for attorney review. So everything I ask for, they can say no to, and the contract's already there. Whereas if the things that are going to come up, let's say we know Charlie's going to do the inspection, and we know he's going to catch everything, right? If I've already negotiated, don't stop it. Just
Nobody catches everything.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna
That's
catch.
an expectation that can't be reached.
He's gonna catch all the important stuff. I'm gonna assume that a guy like Charlie is gonna catch most of the important stuff, right? Could he miss something? I mean, I don't know. He gets distracted by things. I saw him this morning. He wasn't here with us. He was elsewhere. But
all right.
Let's say he's not having a problem with Chase, and he's on his game. Then what's the use in me sitting there as a seller and going like, hey, it's a 30-year-old roof. I should have replaced 5 years ago. I didn't tell that to the buyer. Now I've got a problem, right? Same with Charlie's gonna point out that the 12 inches from the floor up in the finished basement are obviously brand new. I can see the patch because they didn't do such a hot job when they pulled out because it's all water damaged. If I already told the buyer, hey, we had a water problem. This is what happened. This is how it was fixed. It was a 100-year rain event that caused it. So it's sort of it's a thing that you shouldn't expect to happen all the time. Whatever it is, trust is being built, and now you've got a much smoother path toward the the ultimate goal. Otherwise, all right, well, let them find what they find. Okay, well, do you want to waste 2 weeks' time where they had an inspector and then they had a specialist come out and they go, the roof, I can't do this. It costs everybody money. Now you've got a buyer that spent money on these professionals. You wasted 2 weeks of your time, and what did you get out of it? Well, I thought I could schmooze it.
Well, that's, and to go off what you were saying, if I may, the fact is that if you don't have a professional or professionals that you're working with, and when, the biggest thing is when I talk to a seller, besides price, besides market, besides this, besides that, when we go through disclosures, I said, listen, when you fill out these disclosures, be as honest as possible. Because if you're not, and we find it later, that can cause a few different problems, right? One of them being maybe the major one, which is you got more money than when we listed it for, and now all of a sudden there's a serious problem that you didn't disclose in the first place. Mm-hmm. I ask people all the time, did you do anything? Did you have one of the questions that you ask them throughout the transaction toward the end or whatever it is, whenever your process is you say, has there been a insurance claim? And they'll be like, no. And if there is, then that causes a problem. So it's like, hey, did you do an insurance claim? Yes, we did. We had this issue. Okay, was it taken care of? Yes. Do you have the documentation? Yes. Okay, great. Just make sure that you're aware that the attorney will be asking for that documentation to provide evidence to the buyer and that sort of thing. So,
and there's a way to find out, by the way. If
you're talking about the title itself? Or
well, so with the insurance claims specifically, and this isn't foolproof, right? So, things can still slip by. But what I advise my buyer clients to do is to ask their insurance agent to pull a CLUE report, CLUE. This is a database that insurance...
talk about this before, I remember.
Yeah, it's a database insurance companies use. They report claims made on their policies, and so they can pool all of these, claims. Nice. And they're. I think that in insurance, I forget the name, but anyways, that was going to be a tangent, so let's not do that. But I'd say most insurance agents will pull that report for you. If they won't actually give you the report, they'll tell you what's on it. And when you find out, the seller slipped their mind that they 3 years ago had a water damage claim. Far better. I mean, Steve, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but wouldn't you rather have a buyer who's willing to pay full price or more, still knowing that there was, a leak in the roof, than getting that same offer and accepting it, and then them finding out about that later on, and now they view that as leverage to get a concession from you?
Well, so there's two things there. First of all, am I representing the buyer?
Well, I'm in this instance, you would be representing the seller. I think.
Very different then. Because in the buyer situation, I'm going to tell them to offer less, depending on the market, because I want to get a better deal. So,
well, sure.
But from the seller perspective,
and there we go. This is to my point exactly.
Yeah.
If there's no deal to be had with the house in its current condition, don't tie things up for 2 weeks, spending money on him, spending money. These days the appraisals are out there, in no time. You could easily by the time we figure out that this
depending if Joey's the lender or not.
Well, by the time we find out that the deal's not going to happen, as a buyer, you could be $1,100, $1,200, $1,500 in on a house you're not going to buy.
Sure, absolutely.
Not great. Not great. And then you go into the next one going, geez, I'm not going to spend another however much, call it $1,500, to find out I'm not going to buy this house. Whereas if you had already negotiated knowing about those issues, and look, sometimes the seller doesn't know either. And, in that case, there wasn't anything to disclose because you had no knowledge to disclose it. But if you know about stuff, in my opinion, it's better to get it all out on the table, especially in a market like
Cards
this.
up.
You're probably still going to get top price.
Absolutely. And the thing is, too, going off of that as well, you know, if the seller doesn't know it, all depends on how long that seller's been there. Okay. Let's be honest. Okay. Unless the seller has amnesia and forgot, fine.
I get a lot of flippers. You know, I'm representing buyers. You get
It's
these
bogus.
flippers, and
My
they're
real
like,
estate agent told me not to put it down.
I don't know what to
I
tell
don't
you about your real estate agent. You obviously had the wrong one.
I did, you know, at that point in time. But, you know, I'm going to go back to Joey on this. What's the process with the appraisers if they see a stain and there's no active water leak in there?
So, I mean, it depends on the appraiser at the end of the day. Some appraisers will note it. They can say it's subject to a certified, you know, I don't know, roof inspector in that situation.
I hate
or
that
plumber
appraiser.
to make sure there's nothing, right? But like, but it's really appraiser dependent. Like it's. I mean, all of our industries, right? It's a low bar for entry. So I hate to say that, oh, it's definitely going to be an issue or it's definitely not going to be an issue. At the end of the day, like everyone's saying, like disclose things. When I just sold my last house, I did have a insurance claim for a water leak, and I fixed it. And I provided evidence, I provided warranty, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously nothing came back on the appraisal because it was fixed. But I would imagine if an appraiser had gone into my house and they had seen the amount of bubbling in the paint and all those things, I would have been nailed on it, right?
Yeah.
If it's obvious, an appraiser's totally going to hammer it.
And you're building trust, Joey. That's really, you know, goes back to what I'm talking about, building trust. I mean, when I'll give you another example. I had a client that we just closed on Monday, the sale of their home, and they had a sewer backup last July. Remember, we had that torrential rainfall that cut short the NASCAR race. I went back and looked because they were like, yeah, remember that July 4th? I was like, do I ever? And so I went, I Googled a little bit. I was like, yeah, we did get a lot of rain. Turns out at Midway, which this house was by Midway, that the amount of rainfall we got, I think on that Sunday, was twice the record for a day rainfall.
I do remember that.
I put all of that in the response letter. And I said, look, back in July 4th, y'all would remember. I mean, I said it differently because, you know, lawyers write like, you know, we write like we write. What can I say? But, you know, the gist of it, I'll paraphrase, is that last July 4th, y'all will remember we had like a generational kind of rainfall that, you know, no one has seen or would
like
expect.
last night.
And well, last night was crazy, but and you know, there was a sewer backup. An insurance claim was made. Everything was addressed professionally. You know, all the finishes were replaced, and you know, and that was that. And so, you know, we other than that, we've not had water come in. When you give that kind of context and you're being forthcoming and explaining, you know, because I could have just as easily responded by saying there was a water claim last year. Now, tell me, are those two responses different? How are you going to react? You know, that first one, you know, you go, okay, yeah,
It's
I do
almost
remember that.
passive-aggressive.
Well, I do remember that, and okay, you know, I'm not worried because I don't expect. Well, you know, let's not go off on whether we should start to expect more severe weather, because, you know, it's
going to happen.
Yeah, you know, well, we're on the right radio station to talk about climate change. If we were over in Elk Grove Village, maybe I'd have to have a more. All
right, I'm just cutting you off right there, Joey. I want you to tell me a story. I want you to tell me a story about a client that I think I referred to you, and I think you made this loan. So I had somebody call me up. They were getting a VA mortgage, and the appraiser came out there, and they knew that they had water seepage in the basement. They put in a flood control system in, and the appraiser wanted to have a certification that everything's fixed. I'm like, yeah, I can do it for you, but I'm going to charge $300 just to send somebody out there, you know, for 10 minutes. And I said, it's kind of a waste of money, and it really doesn't seem like it's one of the norms that comes into this. I referred them off to you, Joey. I believe you did write the mortgage. And the funny thing about it, I don't know if I shared this with you, they actually called me back and they just said, we don't need your services anymore. And I'm like, you could have told me why. But did you end up hiring
What did
them?
you do, Joey?
No, I know who you're talking about, but no, I did not end up working with them, which is hilarious to me. just because I remember the situation and I heard the terms of what they had going on. I was like, oh my God, you guys are getting hammered right now. So they worked with someone else, thankfully, because honestly, after that conversation and now after hearing what you just said, I'm like, that would not have been a very good relationship to build.
Really?
So
That's interesting.
I am about relationship building with people that it makes sense to build a relationship
Boom.
with, right? So
Love it.
that's where that went. But no, I mean,
Being
they
very
sent me their
diplomatic.
loan estimate. I looked over their loan estimate. I looked at everything. And I mean, I'll just say that there are people in my industry that aren't good people, and they were definitely using them.
Yeah,
But-
absolutely. Because they'll pull some strings and they'll somehow get the loan approved and this, that, whatever. And it's completely
Well,
ridiculous.
Joey,
and
Well, they run
not right.
they run the dollars up is what happens.
Well, that and the fact that they take advantage of the client, unfortunately, and they get away with it, and it is what it is. And you know what? When Joey was saying that, it was like, I was the one that said boom, and the fact is that building relationship is key. And if you're not honest with them, and you're not, forthcoming and explaining different things and helping them understand stuff and so on, then you don't want to work with those people anyway. It's not about the dollar at the end of the day. It's about the relationship. And if you're not going to be a good person and be honest and so on, then, besides getting out of the business, please.
I have two
It's more
things
than
to
that.
add. I have two things to add. One is that my name is Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer with Loftus Loft. I'm on Instagram at Loftus_Loft. I'm
You're
on
going to be doing
TikTok
it again in
at
3 minutes
Loftus
anyway, I
Loft.
figured.
Why not? But Joe, I think one of the really the biggest problems with these loan estimates. There's many problems, many problems. But what are people shopping for? They're shopping for interest rates, right? And so people in your industry, people who are perhaps less than straightforward, let's say, they know that they can manipulate that interest rate,
hate that
and
word.
it will cause people to they shut everything else about the loan out because they don't understand anything else on that sheet. They just look at the interest rate and they go, "Yay, low interest rate! I can brag to my friends that I have a 6.25 interest rate," not knowing that they're paying $8,000 to buy it down from $7,000. I mean, isn't that kind of what you're describing in terms of the less than straightforwardness in your business?
No, absolutely it is. I mean, it's the oh man.
Triggered.
No, so
Need more of
this is what
than
we
an
talked-
hour
I-
for this.
Yeah, I talked about this last week too, and I had clients. They went with they were buying in Georgia. The realtor told them to shop me against Zillow, which was hilarious. To me. The
Jesus.
Zillow guy was coming back a half a point lower on rate than me, and I was like, "There's no way. If this is freaking Zillow mortgage, blah blah blah." So I was like, "Hey, you know what? Have fun, but do me a favor. When you get your loan estimate and it's locked, send it to me." So once it went under contract and they got their locked loan estimate, I saw it. The guy was charging more than a point. I'm like, dude, this is what drives me nuts. I'm not going to show you what a point costs up front, because that's not an apples to apples thing. I want you to see what the loan looks like without charging you more to get lower rates, right? So once I saw it, I knew I was already beating it. They ended up closing with me because it was cheaper to work with me. But it's just, again, people are like, "Oh, get the best rate, get the best rate, get the best." I'll tell you what, I'll give you the lowest rate in the world. You're just going to hate how much money you have to bring to close.
Right.
So
right.
it's all about finding balance. You can bite on your rate, whatever. That's fine. I'll show you options.
Joey, I want to highlight something that Joey just talked about that I wonder if anyone else picked up on it. And he was very specific when he said, "I want to see the locked loan estimate." And Joey, you and I have talked about this before as far as the difference between a locked loan estimate and one that is, well, not locked, let's say. Number one, how do I know that I have a locked loan estimate? Number two, why is that important?
On the top right of your loan estimate, there's going to be a little checkbox that says locked, yes or no. If it says yes, then you're locked, and it'll give you an expiration date. Why is that important? Because honestly, on a loan estimate, it's basically toilet paper. The loan estimates that you get up front, unless it's locked, they're toilet paper because you can put whatever you want on those things. It's not real numbers from the lending standpoint until you see the lock checkbox marked yes.
So one that's not locked, they're not held to any standard in terms of how much anything can change. Is that the correct understanding?
I would say that's a very broad answer that is technically correct, because I know there are still lenders out there that are sending out loan estimates with terms that look super favorable, but they're unlocked. And then once they get locked, people are like, oh, well, I'm too deep into this. Now I'm screwed.
You know, I'm writing a book right now, and originally it was designed to be, you know, how to hire a home inspector and talk about the different services. I want to expand that, and I really am going to ask all three of you and put you right on the spot. I want you to participate in it. I think we should be writing some sort of a short ebook, you know, how to choose the vendors in buying a house. You know, what are the things to watch out for? What are the things that you should be checking for? And not just to gear them towards us and stuff like that, because there are just so many variables and too much of our society believes that we're all commodities. And I really don't think that's the truth. But we don't really have the ability or the time to go ahead and express to somebody what makes somebody unique and valuable.
I love that idea. I absolutely love that idea. I would love to
100%.
have a pamphlet like that.
I'm always there. Come on, Charlie.
I would love to have
We're all gonna
something
work
like
on
that
this.
to just say, hey, you know, and like you said, Charlie, this isn't meant necessarily. I mean, look, let's face it. I'm going to be perfectly
you, and
honest.
you're above the average by far.
This
and
is
it's not just BS.
It's
right?
this is a lead generating device, right? That's what it is. I don't want to BS anybody. You know, writing a pamphlet like that is meant to generate
give out free
leads.
information to get the contact. Absolutely.
But what it's not meant to do, and what I would not intend it to do, is to steer you away from hiring someone that is a good fit for you. I'm not a good fit
Absolutely.
for everybody.
Me neither.
So, you know, if you want,
I'm not going to agree with that.
if you want, if you want a super straight-laced attorney, I think Rachel, all of our mutual friend. I don't know if you consider her a friend. I consider her a friend.
I
know
consider her a
Charlie
friend.
does.
Yeah, absolutely.
She said something funny that I told her I was gonna take and steal from her, but she's like, so many lawyers exude sad dad energy, and I could not stop laughing because it's like she was talking about, you know, I think I want to introduce you to someone who might be a good fit because you don't exude that sad dad energy that so many lawyers do, but you know, because that is so the norm. And because that's the expectation, when you find someone who doesn't have that sort of thing that you're expecting your lawyer to be, you might think to yourself, I don't know about that guy. I might be the guy you don't know about that guy. But if you want to work with someone that doesn't have sad dad energy, I am certainly Rachel Cherney certified as not having sad dad energy.
I love it. I love it. All right,
I can't wait to
I
send
love
her
you,
that.
Rachel. I don't know.
Yeah, no, she's a wonderful person. She is. But we are running out of time.
I'm going to send her that clip for sure.
Definitely do that.
You should.
But while you got the air and the mic, Pat, if you don't mind, please give us your contact information.
Find me on social media. Follow me. Send me a message. Let's correspond at Loftus_law on Instagram, at Loftus Law on TikTok.
And Joey, same thing for you, please.
Yeah, you can call or text me at 630-235-2405. Find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd.
Careless
And we're going to be bringing
whisper.
Steve Davis on once a month in this. He's going to end up being our regular real estate agent. And every time he's on here, I want to kind of turn this show more to, instead of an ethics type thing, more into an education program. So thank you for being here with us today,
Absolutely.
Steve.
Thank you very much.
Can you give us your contact info?
Yeah, I'm Steve Davis. My number is 312-513-6314. You can find me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis. And education is key for sure. So I'm happy to do that.
All right. And we are out of time. My name is Charlie. I'm sorry to cut you off, Steve.
No worries.
Everybody, thank you for listening again. My name is Charlie, and I'm out. And thank you, Devin Tingle, for being our producer.